Welcome to Oh Brother, a podcast of three brothers trying to figure it all out, with your hosts Brandon, Collin, and Aaron. On this week's show, Stealth Rockfall.
Nothing. Starting. Hello!
Hello.
Clean as a 10-minute part.
You the whole time.
Oh, totally fine. I was slightly worried about that when I was texting Collin about my schedule for next week, and his response was, yeah, either one or both is fine. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait, that's not what I meant.
And I thought I had responded much stronger after you had said like the night, like this day and this day, but all I responded was, oh yeah. So I'm really sorry about that.
Which is very unhelpful.
I was like, huh, you know what? actually, I understand why this would be a little bit confusing.
What? Listeners, today is currently Tuesday, right? It's still Tuesday? It was a long day. It's Tuesday?
It is.
Anyway, in discussion on Monday, we were discussing this week's recording schedule and next week. And I cannot record next week because it is, Monday and Tuesday next week. Because I had parent-teacher conferences at work.
Yeah.
And so I said, oh, maybe next Thursday. And Collin was like, yeah, Thursday. Which Aaron, I think, saw that part and was like, oh, okay.
All I know is Thursday, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, we're doing it Thursday, just like period. And so,
Next Thursday. Spoilery
my
note.
bad. My bad.
It's all good. No worries.
I have to break the timeline here, but so sorry.
It's all right. Little behind the curtain action right now. So anyway, how's it going?
No. Aaron.
Well, new wise, I mean, work is still chaotic. Here, got a wedding this weekend. I'll text and complain about that later. Had an interesting Saturday and an independent film movie.
I want to hear more about this. That's
I've
what I want.
I've been obsessed with the Three Kingdoms period of China recently, so that's what's new with me.
Oh, man.
So the first thing,
My also favorite period. Anyway, let's start with this movie.
So
I want to hear about this.
Oh, so it's called the Night of Kings, and Night of Kings. It's an independent film made in, I believe it was directed and shot in the Ivory Coast.
Officially, it's Le Côte d'Ivoire. That is the official pronunciation of that.
So my French is not great.
Sorry, geography teacher here, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize.
Well, actually,
it was very unique because I don't, with the last time someone says, "Oh, I watched an independent film from a Sundance festival." So the movie theater, the name eludes me right now because it's so just kind of like way out of the way. It's in Tulsa, and it is the most non-movie theater-esque I've ever been to. Like, you just walk in and they're like, "Oh, here's tickets," and then like there's two people working. It's not very big. I think they have like 3 theaters that maybe seat like 30, 50 people in each. Very small. But like it kind of had like a really cool like aesthetic and a really cool vibe to it. So we go there, we get our tickets. There's a group of people leaving. We get in there. Shelby and myself are the only people in the movie theater. And it's about this kid who is sent to prison, and in the prison culture of this area, there's like a power struggle between like the current like prison warlord kind of dude and like another faction of the prison, and then they're like, oh, what? I don't think anyone's gonna watch this movie anytime soon, so they're like, oh, I, the warlord, am dying. I need something to prolong that. Hey, new person, you are now what's called the Roman, and you have to tell us a story. and it's just this kid that tells this weird story throughout the whole process of a night, and then like some things go down, and then the sun comes up, and he lives, and then the movie ends. So there's a lot of emotion into it because like you realize like, oh, if he finishes this movie or the story before the sun comes up, they kill him, and like it's some sort of like weird ritual thing that happens. And so it's just this kid that he's telling the story, and then he realizes that, and so it's just like a whole, kerfuffle of storytelling. And then some stuff goes down, and then the sun comes up, and then he's alive, and then boom, credits. So there's not a lot of time to like emotionally unpack everything because you don't learn anyone's names except for by like the nicknames that they're called. You get to kind like it would kind of help if I understood like West Africa, really. West Africa, like
That's fair.
The stuff behind it, except for like it talks about the whole political upheaval, all that kind of stuff to kind of give you like the setting, and then it's like here's a prison in the jungle, and then you're introduced to this like he looks like he's 16 years old. He's sent to jail or to prison, and then they're like, tell us a story. And so it's a lot different than a lot of the other international films I've seen. It's subtitled. It's all in French.
Yeah, probably French.
Yeah. And so like it's cool and like the aesthetic and the feel and the vibe, and then some weird things happen, and you're like, I mean, I guess that makes sense if I understood it more, and then boom, ending. And so it was cool, but the whole ride home, Shelby and myself were like, what? So it was very unique. They had a lot of other independent Sundance films there. Being like I said, we were the only people in this theater. The guy came in. He's like, "Oh, just you guys? All right. Well, I'll go. I guess I'll go and start the movie." And then we're like, okay, we'll be here." And yeah, and then it just manifested from there. It's like an hour and a half, maybe. Movie long. So I mean, you could sit through it. And it's just it's not like what's the when I say weird, I always think of like the what's his name? Stan, not Kubrick. What's his name?
I mean, Stanley Kubrick. Yes, but
Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, like his films that are like this is meant to be weird. It was just like a weird feeling throughout the film of like partial uneasiness, of like fascination throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to see it, if it's like on Netflix or Amazon,
it will not be playing here. I can guarantee you that. I don't
click. But yeah, I mean, it's just a unique movie that I was like, I mean, yeah, like I can get it, and then it's like, oh well,
it's kind of crazy. It sounds like a weird, like West African version of Arabian Nights, right? It's very Scheherazade, where you just have to keep telling the story or you die, right? That's the
I mean,
that's the connection I make first, right? Is that whole thing where she just has to sit and tell all the tales of all the stuff, like Aladdin and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean that's a very good thing, but it's like it's supposed to be one continuous story, but he's like, I forgot something. And
I mean, as you would if you realized you were going to be killed and it was only like 3:30 in the morning. You're like, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you about this bit. And then like back up. I mean, that kind of makes sense that it would do that actually.
Yeah, and so like it provides a like a weird kind of like back and forth between like the story he's telling and then like the current, like the present time. and then something happens, and it was a very interesting movie. Is my take on it.
That's pretty cool.
Apparently, it has a very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, there you go.
Normally, I try not to like use like film critic, leveling things to determine if I want to go see a movie. But like when we saw it, it's like it's an independent film, and it's like a 98 rating or something like that. And so like, yeah, and then Shelby found it, and I was like, oh well, yeah, we kind of got to see it. I'm very interested to see what this has to hold, and I wasn't disappointed, but I wasn't upset. I was just disappointed.
I was just confused.
It was confused. There was a lot of confusion. We kind of had to, again, since we were the only people in the movie theater, we got to, commentate like Mystery Theater, 2000.
That is
or 3000 on like
one of the great things about being alone in a movie theater. It's like it's really, I don't know. It's a weird, because it's happened to me a few times with just like a small group of people and we were it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really kind of neat because you can just like talk and nobody cares. Like you can do whatever. And
well, most of the time with Shelby and myself throughout this film, we're like, huh? What does that mean? But I've had experiences with my friend Daryl where we like talk the whole time. And like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's slightly different if the movie is in French and it's from West Africa.
I was like, wait, what happened? So yeah, that was our weekend. We got to go to a place called the Gathering Place, in Tulsa, over by the Riverwalk. Not the Riverwalk, whatever it's called. It's an open park that has all these different attractions. We did that. We walked around, and then we went and had lunch at a really cool place called Mother Road Market, which is on Route 66. It's like a big food place that you have different options of eating. And then we did that. Then we went to the movie theater, and then we went home and scratched our heads the whole time. It was like, what did we just watch? And then that was it. That was our Saturday. So I've been in deep thought this entire time of what just transpired, and many YouTube videos later on talking about West Africa and French colonialism and all that stuff. And so yeah, that's what's been going on here, at least. So
very nice, very nice. I want to know the second part now. What has brought about your current interest in the Three Kingdoms period of Chinese history?
Okay, so it's the main thing is that there's a video game called Three Kingdoms, and it's made by the Total War people. And they like Rome Total War, like a lot of historical games, and my personal all-time favorite game of ever, the Warhammer Total War series. And so thinking about that, and then just thinking about like more so like ancient Chinese culture, and having that always in the back of my mind of like Korean culture, and that Netflix series that I watched like a long time ago called Kingdom, where it's about like the time period of Japan's first invasion into Korea, and plus their zombies. And so thinking of how kind of like each country kind of influenced each other. And then I watched like part of, Red Cliff, which talks about the big battle in the Three Kingdoms. And then I was like, well, let me just deep surge into this. And the kind of, also part of this time period and culture that not that many people know about or discuss. Because when you think of like mythology, you think of like ancient Greece or ancient Rome and like all of that kind of mythology. But literally the part of this time period of Chinese culture, it's written in a book called The Romance of Three Kingdoms, where it's not history-ish, and it's part like romanticized and into incorporated in mythology, and so like there's history to it, but like these larger than life characters that come in, like Zhou and all those kind of things, and like, oh, like this did happen, or Chow Chow,
Yes.
that that happened, but to like there's a mystery behind it, like it's history, but what part is and what part isn't, and then that just spiraled into the Red Turban Rebellion, and then like the nine princes time period.
Yellow turban.
Yeah. What did I say?
Red. What's yellow?
Oh yeah, the Yellow Turban Rebellion and
right, whatever.
Yeah, and so it's just been a spiral effect. What happens most of the time is that I watch something or I read something about a particular time period in history, and then I start like reading books or ordering books or just diving into YouTube channels, and I'm like, oh yes, I love this, and then a few weeks from now, I'll watch something else. Like, oh, I'm really into that now. So if you ask me like a week from now about like, oh, Aaron, what was time period? Like, oh, well, actually, Laodie Day did this during this time period. And like, oh, what are you interested in now? Like, oh, I'm actually interested in Latin American history, but one step at a time. So it's just been a spiral, man. It's a lot of emotions going on right now. I feel a mental wreck from the movie.
From the movie and the confusing quagmire that is the Three Kingdoms. Collin, for trying to keep up here, the Three Kingdoms period is like the end of Han Dynasty China, and like starting around like 220 AD. I think I just looked it up here. It kind of goes between that and like 80. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So like this like 60-year period where China split into three kingdoms. Get it? And like they were really vying for power to take hold and who was going to be in charge of China. And it, like Aaron said, it's really fascinating because it's like historical, but also the mythology kind of around this time, like the people that were there it's nuts. Right? Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like the story of what supposedly happened during this time with all those people is insane. It's like this crazy story that is like, there's all this like alliances and betrayals and strategy and turning on people and like one single combat to the death and craziness and like, man. It's like it is wild. There's all these like cool moments, like the allegedly, and that have been mythologized to this story, like that like is attributed to like single characters. Where like there's one part where they're like escaping, like the Shu Kingdom is escaping, they're being chased down, and like they have to. Like, there's a guy who just guards the last bridge. He's like one of the king's, like, or not king, but the leader's like best friends. And he's like, no, I'm going to guard the escape. So there's like this really like insane showdown where Zheng Fe holds the whole bridge until they can escape, and then like runs away. And then like Guan Yu, right? A guy's like mythologically insane, like literally like the warrior god of China. Like that's how mythologized he's become.
Oh my.
Like I have read that, Aaron. I have that in 2 volumes on my bookshelf right here. I have the
really.
Yeah, I do.
Oh my! Did you get those? Did you get those last year?
I got those a long time ago.
Okay, I couldn't remember if those were.
No, those are not recent purchases.
Okay,
I read them many years ago, but they are really crazy. And then, of course. This period immortalized in one of the most niche and bizarre video games ever created. That's right, Dynasty Warriors. That's right. I love that game. That's my guilty pleasure game list. Right, like Dynasty Warriors. Like the game is not like great, but like, it's also like fun, and it's one where they just make more, and it's like just the exact same game, but like. Updated graphics and stuff. So no. I mean, it's not bad because they add some new features and things, but it's like Dynasty Warriors 7. Yes, it's the exact same story, and it's literally That's what everybody that plays it wants, though. That's like that, like the really niche fandom that is there. Back to niche things. That's all they don't care. That's the exact same game again. They just want.
Could you could you give us a brand new video game and tell the exact same story? Thank you.
Yeah.
With different characters,
Yes.
maybe.
No.
Oh, no.
Well, they add whenever they because like when they update it, they have now more room for like more characters that are actually in the the actual tale and stuff.
Yeah.
So they just like add more random people. Like, oh, here's this other side guy.
Did you
who's kind of important, but we didn't have room on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually no room in the RAM for him last time, but now we.
Memory bus increases. We can tell more stories.
Yeah, we can have more actually named characters instead of like the generic ones. So
yeah,
again, that's another guilty pleasure thing. But I also am a giant. I find that time period very fascinating as well.
Yeah.
So it's like all the political maneuvering and all the craziness and like oh man, it's wild. There is not a summary, like it's not like pages long about all the weird stuff that happens in that. Probably like,
wow.
Yeah, I think it's cool though too. I like that. It's fun. That's another random side thing that I'm like, oh man, this period's so cool, and like nothing else. Like that's the only. There you go. Collin, what have you been doing?
There's a lot going on. So
how many West African movies have you seen this week?
About average, actually, about my average number.
So zero.
No, I did want
0 to a half, the same number of movies from India you have seen.
I watched 8 more minutes of that movie 2 nights ago. I had to stop. So,
one day, audience. One day.
I am slowly getting there. Yeah, so that's fun. For those of you wondering, that is from episode This Is Only Half Over, where we review and watch movies from Bollywood. And mine is still not done. So, anyway. Yeah, no.
And spoilers, listeners, I liked them all very much.
So much so that you did a deep dive.
I watched like 4 or 5.
I don't know how you had time for it because mine is literally I still have an hour and 15 minutes left in this movie.
To be fair, it was like quarantine times. Like we weren't in school. I wasn't doing anything else. So I was like, well, yeah.
Touche.
Yeah. So I had lots of time. What are you talking about?
I had nothing but time. So yeah, that's but
that's why I picked that challenge because like I need to do something.
No, it's good. It's there. It's on my recommended or continued watching on Amazon Prime video every time.
There you go. One day he'll finish.
I'm reminded. I did. I sat down. I watched it. I watched about 8 more minutes. I was like, okay, we're
oh dear,
moving on. So, no, it's been with a lot of the the weather's getting nice and people are ready to travel. And so, what does that mean? It means they need
dog sitting extravaganza.
They need to put their dog somewhere. And I am not joking when I say that in the past 8 days, we have said more to more people than we have the previous 3 years combined. It is just insane because we're totally booked. We have been at 100%, 110% capacity. We will be at 110% capacity for 3 weeks straight.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, and so it's been. Part of that is we had a family that left and they have 3 dogs. Again, reference last week's episode where I discussed the pugs and this little
Indeed.
like Yorkie thing. So immediately, like already we've got 3 dogs in the house, right? And so that's because one family left. And then as soon as like all these other people trying to leave, it's trying to accommodate them and go visit them and also schedule and all this other stuff. So it's been a lot, but it's been fine. I mean, the dogs are for the most part very well behaved. It's nice. They're at the very end of their stay now, and by now they're used to the routine and they get it, and so that's one nice thing about dogs that stay with you for a while when you board them, is that after about day 4 they get it and they understand what's going on.
They just know, yeah,
and they just know, right? Very rarely have we had a problem where it's day 6 and a dog is still like totally freaking out.
yeah.
Because those dogs, not fun at all.
Those are just neurotic and they can't be helped.
Yes. So that's good. So we have another week of just absolute mayhem. But yeah, next week is looking to be even more crazy. But yeah, that's been good for the other side of things. I sat in on a meeting where I have never had to sit on a meeting like this before, where there were 30 people on the call, and I sat in on those meetings before, but this has never happened. So I sat in on this meeting because we were supposed to be part of my work objectives this year is to help reintroduce my unit to the department, because we're technical staff. People are supposed to. I only have a job. Basically, I only work when people bring me work. We can do stuff, but the nuts and bolts of my job is somebody from within the department contact me and they have questions about streams and watershed health, and then I can go do that. Can't really drum that up. So with the reorg that has been so well documented on the show, we've talked a lot about all the chaos that has ensued. We are so.
I know that all of our German listeners just love to hear about that. Probably
they probably love it as well. I mean,
all right, guys.
Intermixed with that was a lot of the hog hunting, and I'm sure
that's true.
Germans love a good boar hunt.
Still happening? Maybe, don't know.
I don't.
Your podcast for invasive species talk. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Invasive species podcast central. But we're so disconnected from the people who we're actually supposed to be serving now, and nobody knows how to contact us. And many people are now in positions where they should know about us, but they've never had to interact with us before because they weren't in fisheries, or they weren't in aquatics. They were in forestry or wildlife, or in something completely different. But now they're in decision-making positions. They're setting work plans, and they're telling people to do things, but they don't know about us. And they don't know that actually the way a lot of these things and projects are written, we have to approve them. We have to have hands and eyes and ears on project and give our recommendations a lot of times before they move forward. Whether they end up using our recommendations or not, like we still have to go through that process. So to do that, we're now sitting in on wonderful district planning committees. In case you're wondering, there are 9 regions within MDC in Missouri. Each region has between 3 and 4 districts that meet once a month. And so that's a lot of meetings to sit on when they all end like this. 30 people on the call, and these are all people who are making decisions and blah, blah. And they go, okay, Thomas, we'll start with you, and then we'll just go down the roster and give us an update on the projects you're working on.
Oh, ow!
they just turn it over, and the other person has the floor, and they can just talk and talk and talk.
Oh no!
And one guy, you can tell the kind of interactions that people have had previously whenever they get handed the mic like this. Some people would go, you would say they look at their paper and they go, yeah, helped a couple landowners and working on funding. next. And then someone goes, I have cut down 337 trees. I have done 5 fires. I have contacted 19 landowners, and I have made 18 site visits. I have worked on 14 ponds, and I have it's like they have this dashboarded out, right? They are counting.
Yeah. Also, can we just say the sentence "I have done 5 fires" sounds like an arsonist out of context? Like we.
Right.
Like, wait, what do you mean you've done 5 fires? What does that mean?
Wait. Well, it's like, were you supposed to? Right.
Yeah.
Follow-up question. Right?
Hold on.
And so, my role, like, I am not at that level of decision making. I am sitting on these, and everyone else in my unit are sitting in on these. I just have a presence, right? Because this is dump, and they are talking about all of their projects that are going to require funding that do need to typically at least have our eyes and ears on. And so it's just a way to try and get us better connected at a certain level, so that we know what's going on. Because right now we have no idea. I cannot tell you what anybody's doing. And a lot of that has to do with the people who are supposed to be contacting us have no idea what their jobs are.
No.
It's crazy. Right. And so they're trying to figure it out. And the people who are doing the work plans don't know what anybody else used to do. And so it's just one way that we can try and be a little bit more connected and just be visible. Be like, hey, yeah, we're here. We are technical. We are support. And we're here for you. So here's my contact information and move on. But I had to sit through that first meeting this week, actually, and I'm getting the other ones planned out. And I just sat there like rubbing my temples like, oh no, oh no, oh no.
That does sound quite bad. I don't.
Oh, and so our chimney is defunct. They lopped it off at the top and patched it up at the roof, and it just sits right below the roof. Like they tore down the chimney. But there is still a chimney in my wall, and I still have a fireplace.
Yes.
And stuffed up in the chimney down in the living room is a bunch of insulation. The pink insulation stuff that they've crammed up in there, and I've crammed more up in the attic just so I'm not conveying vast quantities of either hot or cold air depending on the season.
You don't want to just like leach heat into the attic? Come on, that's just a fun thermodynamics experiment.
I know.
You just want
just love eating my attic.
Yeah.
And so the other day I'm just going about our day, and I'm going in and out of the front door, I'm going in the back. And then I pause and I look, because the air had been smelling kind of like musty, and I was like, this is kind of weird. But we do have a lot of dogs in the house and blah blah, and so I opened a window.
That's true.
So I didn't really think anything of it. And I look, and no, I don't know what happened at all. But there's 1.5 feet of ash, brick, and amalgamation sitting in my fireplace. with dust all over the floor. And I'm like, what? And so I don't know if a dog was in the fireplace and looked up and saw a piece of that insulation and pulled on it, but I put that insulation there, and there was not 1 foot of ash and bricks and mortar above there whenever I did that. Otherwise, it would have fallen down on top of me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I still don't know exactly what happened, or if like somehow my chimney has partially collapsed inside, and
that's
little bits of it have come down my chimney. But I had to go get a shovel and was shoveling up all this stuff, and then having
did you question small children in the vicinity about what had happened? Also, did you be like, hello, small girl, have you seen this pile of debris in the fire? Do you know anything about this?
I didn't, because the kids have been around it for a long time and they've never messed with it. And we do have a dog. His name is Harley. he's a German Shepherd, and he does chew on a lot of stuff, and he does get into things. So my first instinct was, right. I'm perfectly fine blaming Harley because he's kind of a pill, and he's a puppy, so he can take. But it was just bizarre because I was just like, when did this happen? Because I live in my house and I did not hear anything.
Also, weird sends out of context. I live in my house. Clearly, like
clearly,
Here you
officer,
go,
I live in my house.
Okay.
It seriously was enough to completely fill a 5-gallon bucket worth of stuff, and dust everywhere. I was just so shocked again of like, when did this happen? I thought I surely would have heard this, even if a dog had messed with it. But no. So I have no idea.
Not if it landed on top of the insulation. It's quiet. It muffled the sound.
Still, like,
It was like
landed on top
stealth
of
rock fall.
Right, stealth rock. Those are the worst, right?
Yeah, right.
So that was the most bizarre piece of my past week, was walking in and seeing that after having been in the living room that entire time, and then seeing that going like, that's odd. Guess I need to clean that up now. Okay.
That you didn't think of, like, man, maybe I should go poke my head in the attic and see if I still have a chimney attached to things. Is there a debris field in the attic?
Well, if there's a debris field, it's like in the second story, right? And then I don't know. I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah. No, just so you know, like, okay, well, it's fallen down now. All right.
Sure. Check.
Yeah. Like, that sounds not, I mean, the whole bricks are falling out. This is like an alarm bell.
It was not full
right.
bricks.
Like that's
it was not full bricks. I did not have brick. There were pieces, and then there was like the mortar that goes between them, and then there was
that's also not good. That means that brick
ash.
could be follow next.
yeah, bricks could be next. So, but I'm trying to figure out, like, where did all of that ash come from? Because ash doesn't sit like that. Soot, like, right? Like, soot is up on the sides, and it should be black. This was not black. This was just straight up ash. So
was it ash, or was it like disintegrated mortar?
Well, there were pieces of mortar in there, but it was definitely ash because it was so fine. It was in it.
Okay, well, yeah, that was my question. Like, is it actually just mortar that's ground to dust and it's just fallen out?
It could be,
right. Like, if it's some really like janky, like really old bad mortar that's just disintegrating, and it turns to powder, so it looks like ash, but it could just be mortar.
This is entirely possible. I have.
It's just falling out, and that's why hunks of stuff are falling out of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, problematic. Because
I figure
because mortar holds bricks together,
right?
And so,
and it is a lot of chimney above it. A lot of
chimney.
Even though it's been lopped off at the top, there's still. I mean, it goes.
Yeah, still has to get all the way to the top, though, up 2 floors.
Yes, each floor. Yeah, my ceilings are 10 feet tall.
Yeah,
so 11 feet. Yeah, actually, in the living room, they're taller than that. So it's a lot of feet of bricks.
Plus, somewhere in the attic. So
plus 6 feet in the attic on top of that.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, that was my mystery. So I'll let you know how much more I start accumulating, and go from there.
What a fun, tantalizing mystery. How many bricks are going to come down the fireplace today?
Ooh, let me count.
Yeah. Here you go, children. Counting practice today. 1, 2,
What about you? What's going on?
I don't know. I've had, I don't know, just normal school stuff mostly. I've had a bunch of, not a bunch, but like at least two, what do we call it? Perspective teaching, like students in my classroom this last week.
Yeah, how was that?
So they just show up. Oh, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's been interesting having them come through. So they need observation hours for social studies. And so they heard that my class is the place to be, obviously. So they came by.
No other reason.
Yeah, no other reason. It's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, they just came by. So I had one that was there last week, and then I had another one show up yesterday and today. So they're just doing observation hours. I got to teach a little. She's going to teach a little lesson tomorrow. She's going to do my intro to my last project. And then go from there. So that's been interesting talking to them about that. That's been kind of cool. Like seeing where they are, kind of how their stuff's going, talking to them about just random things. It's been kind of interesting seeing what they have to say about stuff. So that's been kind of I don't know. It's been neat. I don't know why in the world they sent to my class. I was like, the principal was like, do you mind if they come into your class and observe? And I was like, I mean, you've been in my class. You know how crazy it is in here. If that's what you want, if you're cool with that.
Yeah. You're fine them being exposed to that mayhem and trauma. That's fine.
My insanity plus sixth graders.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's extra special land in there. Sixth graders are very intriguing little fellas. So it's fun.
So nice.
It's fun though. Today we had well, Susan came in today because she's the district like registrar person and stuff. So we were learning about things you need to know to be in seventh grade. Dun dun dun, because it's where we are now. Well, they came in. They were talking about our computer system that we use, and they were kind of her and the counselor came in, and they were talking about mostly Susan was talking about how to log into the grade book system from the student side, and so what that looks like, how you log in, how you can monitor your grades and your assignments and everything.
Well, that's cool.
From that side, yeah, it's nice because that's not a thing we do in sixth grade, right? In sixth grade, I still go, "Hey, you, come here." This is how you're missing an assignment, right? Or we have like assignment boards, where we write the assignments and whoever we're missing from just on the board, and they just look at it and they go, "Okay, I'm missing an assignment. Here it is. Boom." Nobody has told our seventh grade teachers about assignment boards. Apparently, it's too advanced technology for them. So they were learning about how to do that. Just like in progress monitor some stuff. And there's other stuff too. Like there's schedules on there. They're like the school calendar is on there. All kind of stuff. So they were learning about that system today, which was pretty good because that's like the seventh graders rely on that a lot. Like I said, nobody tells you in seventh grade. It's just like, goodbye, do your thing. So to be able to be like, oh, what is my grade right now? Check. Okay, got it. Like, that's some good info to have. So we learned about that today. So we're going to practice that some and see how it goes. Part of that stuff we're planning. The counselor talked to us about planning a couple things about to help transition them to seventh grade. We'll see how that goes. Well, I don't know. And then, yeah, that was interesting. And then I was mad the rest of the day. People are ridiculous. So I was like so angry.
Oh no.
Like irrationally angry because like I didn't. They finally let our kids go back to the cafeteria, right to eat lunch. Which I understand why you don't do that. Clearly, there's things happening. So they were like, okay, well, we've moved around the lunch times and we've set all this stuff, and then they let them go in there. We have all these like cool like partition things on all the tables and everything, like these plastic dividers that they can sit by and everything. And like is fine. Friday is fine. Yesterday is fine. Today, I had kids show up at my door like 15 minutes early. I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, they made us leave. I was like, what? What do you mean they made you leave? What are you talking about?
Oh, no.
Yeah. I have no idea what happened. They got in some big, like, a bunch of people are like, no, they have to leave now. There's a bell. Like, there's a bell that dismisses them. I don't understand like what the problem is. And I was just so incredibly angry at these people for that. I was like, what is the matter with you? Why? Why can't you just listen and follow the schedule? We have a schedule for a reason. Just do it. I need you to do one thing. I need you to do one thing and you let me down. What the heck? Good grief. Just a box and lunch back up. Eat in the classroom. It's easier. Don't have to worry about you making bad decisions. It'd be ridiculous. I'm still angry. I'm sorry.
I can't. You hide it so well. I've got to be honest here.
I did. Yeah, I was like, one of my fellow teachers was like, well, I'm going to message somebody about this. It's like, okay, you do that because I am in no frame of mind to be messaging anybody right now because it's going to be just like angry rants and expletives possibly. I don't want to do that. So like, it's just...
That's awesome.
Yeah, like how the kids are like, I didn't even finish my lunch. I was like, I know. What the... Come on.
Even.
What are you doing? I don't know. It was crazy. It's one of those things that makes me really mad because, like, people assume that, like, our schedule is the same as the rest of the elementary school schedule. It's, like, extremely malleable and, oh, you just make up the time wherever you want. You can just fit it in somewhere else. That's the attitude that you get. But, like, no. We have a very tight schedule, right? It's all mapped out like to the minute, right? And we can't. What am I going to do with 50 kids for 10 minutes? Let them sit there in my class? No, great. Come on, what are you doing? Ridiculous. We're so angry. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. You don't have to send any more angry emails at people. Like, what are you doing? Stop it. Other than that debacle of people being ridiculous and not understanding how time works, not knowing how clocks function. Like, I don't...
Just imagine very passive aggressive notes on the clocks in the cafeteria. Explain.
Yeah.
This one is
just be like, hey,
second.
Yeah. This is when you leave. I know. I'm trying to sound too grumpy, but again, it's one of those things where like I only need to rely on other people for like a very small part of my day. And when that part goes wrong, it's like, why? Like I don't. Grr.
Well, you've talked about that in time.
Because the rest of the time, the sixth grade is very self-contained, and we don't, we just do our own thing, right? And then when we need other people for like 30 minutes, that's it. That's all.
Right.
And they screw it up. I was like, why?
Yeah, even.
So angry.
Well, hopefully tomorrow will be better, and they keep them for the proper time.
We'll see. Yeah, let them eat their lunch, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's
what
totally,
are you doing?
That's not cool.
No,
I don't understand that. Why they had.
I don't either. Like, well, and they did the same thing to the fifth grade. They made them leave a little bit early. They're like, well, the other kids came in early. I was like, that's their problem. They shouldn't be here yet.
Yeah.
That's not their turn. It's not their teachers clearly don't know how clocks work. So talk to them.
Right. It's like we need to have an all staff meeting.
Yeah. This is the hour hand. This is the minute hand. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how it works. When the minute hand is on 56. Then let the 6th grade leave the cafeteria. Boom. That's all I need from you. That's why.
Talk to you about the magic of time. Magic time is a flat circle. One where
we gotta go to the 2nd grade and get those little clocks like the yellow ones with the blue hands, you know?
Yes.
Those are
we have a couple of those in my house because I'm working on it with Lily.
Prop those up. All right, guys, look. Here's the deal.
I'm talking to you about the magic of time. Oh my gosh. That's frustrating.
Yes. It's very frustrating. It's terrible. It's not like they just get like oodles of time anyway.
Sure.
That's right. So when you're cutting the time off by like 10 minutes, it's like, what are you doing? Because like logistically, they should only have. Yeah, it's like 28 minutes or something like that. I don't know. Like, whatever. I don't know. So, but that's it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
That you talk about learning time, and that's something that we're working on with Lillian. She went in and was evaluated for kindergarten to see if she was on track.
Oh man!
Right?
Did you skip?
No, she was. So yeah, so she did skip and she caught the ball and she won.
You have to skip. That's the rule.
Something.
Yeah.
And she she got 98s and 99% on everything except right. Her biggest thing that she was knocked on was that she didn't know what the coins were. And because they asked her, what coin is this? What coin is this? What coin is this? And I was like, we haven't talked to them about these results at all, but I'm like, well, yeah, because we don't use coins in our house.
Yeah, like nobody does. Like I don't.
So it's a little frustrating that she, again, I understand that they have their standard checks that they have to do, and they have to be consistent, and blah blah blah. But I'm like, I'm fine. Like that gets back to a lot of my problems with that kind of standard test of like, I understand there has to be a standard and you have to do this thing, but like I am perfectly fine with my child not getting 100% on that because we don't ever use coin, right?
Oh yeah. And again, if they like, listen, I've done those kindergarten screenings. There's kids that are like, what letter is this? What's a letter? Like that, what I mean? And it's fine. Like, it's okay.
I know. Like, it just got me thinking. Like, had me thinking about those kind of tests, and that it really is like, well, yeah. If I would have known that they were going to ask her what a penny was, I would have sat down and like while we were waiting for her to go in to the test, I would have been like, well, this is a penny, right? Like we would have done that. And
well, yeah, but again, you're right. That is a very like, there are some things like that are like benchmarks of elementary school that are not relevant to anybody's life anymore.
Yeah.
And the people that write these things in the state are all like 78 years old and they don't know anything. They're like ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're all like, whatever. So yeah, the fact that they're like, no, they got to know how to tell time with the analog clock. Like, why?
Yeah.
It's literally pointless. Like, nobody uses that. Like, it's fine. Like, it's not.
Right. Yeah. And
they don't need that. Like, nobody needs to know what a nickel is.
No.
I haven't paid with cash for anything in years. Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's annoying and it's in the way, and I don't like carrying in my pocket. As we learned from our other episode, I don't like to carry things around in my pockets.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So I don't want to carry around a pocket full of nickels and dimes. No, I don't need that.
Nobody wants that. So right, and that's it just got me thinking of like how how that kind of stuff just persists, and people go, well, this is the test and this is how we standardize and blah blah, and so you have this test that is unchanging, but yet like societal and cultural shifts are happening and the test isn't actually keeping up with that, and so you actually just end up testing the complete wrong thing and aren't actually getting the result that you think that you're getting, right? Like because it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, because really all you need, like, it's a much more relevant test for kindergarten to be like, what shape is this? Right? Square, circle, triangle. That's identifying, right? It's the same thing, but it's something useful and a thing that you will actually use in your life. Like there are like, you don't need to know what a penny is. You don't use the only thing I use pennies for is in my science class. I use them for my test to when we see which one sounds different. And I use them for weight when we'd make boats to try to sink them. Like how many pennies do I stack in this thing? It's just a weight. I don't ever spend them because number one, they're useless. And what am I gonna spend it on? Nothing. Like
yeah. So it's anyway, and I didn't want to come across as like that parent who's just like, oh well, good. Like I'm glad my child didn't know that, or like or anything like that. But it's obviously not something that I'm going to be concerned about. And this is not just because she's only 5, right? I'm not even talking about that. Like the only reason we really did this test is just to know, right? Nothing weighed on it. Nothing was in the balance. Nothing. We could have cared less. It was just, okay, we can make sure that we're headed in the right direction with this.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they like to have that before they go to kindergarten, just like they said that they know what everybody's at too.
Right.
And some of those are actually really good tests. Like weirdly, the skipping thing is actually a really important test.
Right.
Right. So it not only is like motor skills and stuff like that, it has to do a lot with like crossing the center line.
Yeah.
And ability to read is actually kind of tied to how well you can skip at a young age, which is weird and very peculiar, but it's true.
Yes. Yeah. And
that center line stuff is wild. Like legitimately a bizarre thing. Like there are kids that cannot cross that center line, that imaginary line. Like imagine it bisects your head vertically, like right through your nose.
Yeah.
That there are certain kids who cannot like move their hand from one side of their face to the other because they're crossover and their brain tells them stop. They'll like move their hand and it'll stop in the middle. It's so strange.
Yeah. Well, and just so I understand those kind of tests, and just Lillian is just straight up reading books by herself.
Yeah, true.
To anybody who will listen to her, and she'll sit with us, and Megan and I, we'll be texting each other for different parts of the house, or Megan's out or whatever, and Lillian will be reading the text as I'm typing it, and so I gotta start being a little bit more sneaky. But
it's true.
It's just
have her read to the dogs.
She can't go. She can't.
Perfect.
Perfect. Well, and on that, I know that helps many kids to learn to read is to read to dogs. So there are therapy dogs which are just for that.
Yeah, because they just sit and listen to you, and they're just like an audience,
and they don't have that pressure, and they don't have that. It's a lot less off that. But if there were something that we were concerned about, I would look, maybe a little bit more at these tests. But I just couldn't stop laughing when I was like, oh, okay, yeah, she got a C on that part because she didn't know what a penny was. We're good.
That's fine
in the grand scheme of things. I think we're fine because she was they were doing like the memory numbers of like, I'm going to give you a series of 4 numbers and you have to tell them back. And she could do that. She could do it up to like 6 or 7.
That one's much more important than do you know what a nickel is?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the it was they read a story and then they were like, okay, well, what color was the duck? or how did the boy feel in the story, or things like that. And she did just so again, all these things that are actually relevant. I'm like, okay, but didn't have a pin. I'm good.
Yeah, no one should have them anyway.
Nobody should have them. That's good. Let's further this.
It's true. Get rid of them. That's okay. I know that makes a lot of people angry. A lot of people like a lot of that, like, to the coinage thing, right? That's the big debate. Like, legitimately, we don't actually even need pennies, really. Right. But a lot of people get mad because they're like you said, it's a familiarity thing, and like, oh well, I've always there's always been pennies forever. And so why would you not have them? Even though they're like not cost effective and nobody uses them. And there was literally a coin shortage during quarantine because everyone just has jars full of coins in their house and they don't ever do anything with them. Right. And so like
okay, cool.
When like less people were out spending money on things, there was like no coins everywhere because they're just in jars in people's kitchens. Like they don't use them. They're not convenient.
And I would much rather see, like, as far as things that are, quote, antiquated, old, like, I would much rather see a return to an emphasis on cursive writing than on coin identification or these kind of skills or whatever.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, in the same vein, you also don't need cursive writing either.
I'm saying if you had to have a choice, right, of like,
that's fair.
We'll get rid of coin identification, or we'll get rid of cursive. It's like, well, okay, get rid of coin.
That's true, but I'm just legitimately saying you also don't need cursive writing. That's not a thing,
right?
That's I mean, you literally. When's the last time you hand wrote anything to give somebody? Other than Collin, Aaron, when's the last time you hand wrote something? Collin does it just for leisure.
I take notes like for my job literally all the time. But then,
but are those for you, or do those people need to see those?
Oh yeah, no, those are strictly for me.
Yeah.
And
all the stuff that people need to see. What do you do?
As far as like things that I do for people, or if I
all the stuff for your job. When other people need to see it, what happens to it? Do you write it, or do you what?
I type it up in an email or document it. Be like, here you go.
Yes. Yeah. So
I will say to kind of do with Collin's deal. Shelby loves calligraphy.
Oh yeah.
Like with going back to like cursive, Shelby loves calligraphy and all things calligraphy-ish. That's a word.
True. What is the plural of that? I don't know.
And so she loves,
maybe.
Sure?
I don't know.
Yeah. So she loves all things like that. Like that is something that she has like calligraphy pens and stuff like that. And so like that kind of feel and aesthetic and everything, like that's kind of cool. And so like I think having that ability, I mean, like signatures are different, but like having that ability to be like, oh, look, I can do that. That's kind of cool. But I mean, the only thing I write in cursive is my name, and even that is a mess a lot of times.
I mean, yeah.
Because people are like, oh, can you sign this? And I sign it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did I write that? Like, yes, like you just wrote that. Like, you sure? Because I don't know if I did that. That was terrible. I'm sorry, but it's your whatever. So yeah, I get that a lot with people.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not knocking it because listen, I have a fountain pen collection. Okay, I understand. All I'm saying is it isn't necessary. Like you're saying with Shelby, like it's a cool thing, it's a fun thing, it's a hobby / interest. It's not a necessary part of your life.
Mm.
Right. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's not cool and it's not neat. And there are people that make really beautiful calligraphy things, but it's like a lot of people that just have really nice handwriting, but a lot of that is used for like decorative things. They handwrite like invitations. It's for like special events. It's not a skill that you need, right? It's similar to be like if it was 2021 and we're still teaching shorthand in school.
Mm.
Right. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like Greg ruled shorthand. Who needs that? Nobody. Like it's a skill. It's a cool thing. It was useful at some point in the past. Today is not the day for that, right? And there's still people that I'm sure that like do it. Well, some people like learned it a long time ago, obviously, and like you could learn it on your own,
right?
And just like funsies, you can like wow your friends with your stenography. Be like, what the world?
Oh yeah, and I think part of that is obviously as a parent, and I'm sure as a teacher too, of going, okay, like we're teaching this. Like, why are we teaching this? Are we teaching this because this is what has always been taught, or are we teaching this because it's actually relevant? And then on the other part of that is like when we're keeping stuff, like why, like should we be doing stuff because it actually plays a developmental function and role in a child's life, or do we just want them to know it so they can know it? And that's obviously a balance that you have to weigh, because I for us, I know we will encourage Lillian and Noah to work on cursive writing. I don't think it really does anything developmentally for them, but I think it would be nice for them to know that. But like we will encourage things like skipping and obviously all of these things. So I don't know if I'm quite making the distinction there as well as I'm trying to, but just that there is this balance between doing stuff just to do them, then there's doing stuff because they're actually developmentally advantageous, but maybe they're not relevant to current society, but developmentally they're still beneficial. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's kind of like with the coins thing. Like, yeah. Is it relevant that they know what a nickel is? No. Is it relevant that they could look at something and then identify and classify it as this thing? Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So it kind of becomes irrelevant in the whole testing what the thing is. Right. Mm-hmm. I think they just use coins in that test because it's a thing that at some point everybody did know and did use. Right. But now it's like a what? Who carries change in their pocket? Well, gross. Like not. I don't want that.
And this made me feel really old. I was coming up the stairs and Lillian was downstairs. She said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I've got to go get my cell phone." And there was a pause. And she said, "Dad, what's a cell phone?" And I paused and I went, "It's just a phone." And she went, "Oh, okay." Right? I don't. We just say phone. We don't ever say I have to. Where's my cell phone? Nobody says that anymore.
True.
She had never heard it.
That's fair.
So some of these things obviously change and morph over time as well. It's just it's fun.
That's funny.
Funny whenever you get it put back. You're like, oh yeah, you don't know what that word is. Why would you? Fair.
True. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, she was really confused. She was genuinely like, "What's that?" Oh, it's just anyway.
Well, Dad, aren't all phones mobile? Well, no, kid. Back in my day, they bolted to the wall, and you had to put quarters in them. You don't know what a quarter is, though. It's fine. You don't need to worry about it.
Well, I mean, truth be told, when we say we're going to call somebody, like when we call Dad, we call Dee Dee, we call Megan's folks, we FaceTime them. Right? We do a video call.
Yeah.
We don't even do audio. my kids are so confused when it's audio only, right? They do not understand.
Where are you?
Right?
Why can't I see you?
They're in the phone, right? Like it's and they right. They just calling somebody is just using video. Like that's just what it is. And so that's again these things, these concepts even change. What does it mean call somebody? What does it mean to have a phone? A lot of these terminology change, and so you bring it back to these tests and these standards. Like, how do we make sure that those are keeping up with the societal usage of those concepts, and is that an adequate way to prepare and screen people for for these for education and stuff.
Yeah, well, and I know that so a few years ago the Missouri redid theirs, like their learning standards. They do that every once in a while. They just decide, hey, we'll do, and there was a whole big thing, right? If you remember this, let the cat out of the bag a little bit. You remember like Common Core, right? Like, oh my god, Common Core, oh, you can't brainwash my kid, all that junk. That's a whole other bag of fish that I'm not going to open right now. But like Missouri passed their own standards that were different from Common Core. They're the same thing. They just called them something different. Anyway, they just like renamed them, like it's fine, and then everyone went okay because nobody knows what they're talking about and read them anyway. Right. But all of the standards, like so for example, for history, the wording of them changed to be these like very vague things, right? So where before it was like a very specific, like teach about like Egyptian religion, right? That's what it used to say, something like that. Now it says things like draw comparisons about how religion helps influence culture in ancient societies. Right. So you have this like really broad brushstroke that you have to use to pick out things. Right. And this, some people like all the people that taught, not all the people, I don't want to generalize. A lot of the people I know that taught before, with the old standards, they're like, well, I don't know what to do now. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, it's the same thing, right? You just do.
Yeah.
You can do all the same stuff, but now you have more leeway to draw those actually deep connections instead of like very surface level, like learn facts about Egypt.
Sure.
Not helpful. Draw connections about how religion influences cultural development and society is actually much more useful in the general context, right? Because like that's a deeper level of thinking already.
Sure.
Right. You're to use some teacher parlance, your DOK level is increased. Sorry. You can so like whereas a lot of people see that as a negative, and science is the same way. The science standards are very like, sometimes I have to be like, what? Like they're all based on, they're much more broad, and they say things like develop a model that shows blank instead of like an old one that would be like, tell the steps of the water cycle. Right. The new standard is going to be something like, develop a model that explains how water moves through the Earth's atmosphere. That makes more sense.
Sure.
Right. That's a higher thinking level. That is, and I don't even think it says water. It says like matter and energy. Right. I think it's part of what it says. But you're kind of using that to say, oh, this is how things circulate. This is all then you bring in all the stuff, right? You bring in all the sun and the evaporation and the the radiational heating, all that stuff, right, gets wrapped up in there. And you have to develop the model part is you have to show how it works. You have to be able to explain it, not just like memorize the circle, right? And and remember where transpiration goes and you're filling the blank chart, right? Like that's not helpful. So those things are kind of like, and a lot of people see those as negatives. They don't like how vague they are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't like, like I said, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what that means. I don't know what to teach now. Like, well, you teach the same thing. It's just like,
yeah, and part of that is hard whenever they start changing some of the language, and if you aren't quite immediately able to draw, point to point and make comparisons between them, it can seem really foreign. And without having somebody sit and explain it to you like that, you just go, well, they're learning something completely different.
It's the same thing. It does make it slightly hard whenever I have to talk to all my meetings I have like the 7th and 8th grade science teachers, right? We go, okay, well, like thematically, what are you covering? Like what units are you using to talk about these things?
Right.
Because like if they're going to talk about those things because like I talk about them in regards to like geology, meteorology, these kind of things,
right?
Your hydrosphere and your geosphere. Then if they're also talking about them in that context, now we're teaching the same thing twice. That's unhelpful. So like we just want to. But if I'm teaching them in regards to like the atmosphere, and then she is teaching them in regards to like outer space, boom, then we're fine.
Sure. Right.
No worries. Got it. So it makes those conversations slightly difficult because you're like, okay, well, I like, or with the social studies team, right? Like, well, I'm teaching ancient civilizations in regard to like Mesopotamia, Egypt, right? What are you teaching them? Like, if they're teaching them the same ones, I'm like, okay, well, we don't need to teach the same thing twice. So, like, we need to change what we're doing, right? And I'm fine with that. I'll change it. I don't care. But like, we gotta.
Well, it's kind of like when someone says a word, and you start thinking of a response, but then you have to back up and go, okay, before I continue, I want you to explain to me what you think that means. Right. So
that's a very helpful exercise.
or just like, okay, everybody on the count of 3, say what you think this is. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we're having a problem communicating here. Because we're all saying the same word, but to have a different thing behind it.
Yeah. And I mean, I had that conversation with the social studies team this week because they are very much like, kind of stuck in the mindset of, well, I teach American history and they teach like world history. So there's nothing, there's no overlap. Okay, well, that's not really true. Like I was like, you know what I mean? They're really bad about like, well, I teach like 19th century American history and he teaches like the world history part, like the, like the early part, or like I teach like the ancient civilizations and they teach like, modern history, like American history. Like, well, so there's nothing that you teach that would help my class. Like, that's true. You're not thinking thematically. You're not thinking these broader strokes. Like,
yeah. Well, and that when things are taught compartmentalized like that and not thematically, it does make it hard for the students to make those broader connections, right? And walk away with a more fuller understanding.
Yeah. Well, the students have a hard time anyway because they like.
Well,
a lot of times,
nobody should learn it. I mean, obviously.
Well, that's true. Apparently, I have a wall full of post-it notes that says otherwise. That's my first activity when we start history. Is I have the we do the why is history important thing, and they write them on post-it notes. They're all anonymous, and I just hang them on my closet, on my cabinet thing, and they just stay there. There's like a reminder to us what we're doing this for. But you know, the broader strokes are hard because like I said, it's that kind of like, well, these aren't related, or you know, so it makes it difficult when they seem so out of context, right? Because yes, does King Tut have anything to do with prohibition? No, not at all. But does the question, how does religious beliefs affect the culture and society?
Yeah,
that question is the same.
Right.
You can answer that question about King Tut and the Amarna period and the 1930s prohibition. That question is still applicable in both situations. Right. So that is a much more useful way of thinking. It's just hard when for so long I've been like, well, I mean, like, I don't know how to help them because like I teach civics and I teach world history, so there's nothing to talk about. Like, guys, come on, what are you talking about? Come on. Stop it. Stop. Or like, you know, when I have to go, eventually when I'm going to have to go talk to the 5th and 4th grade teachers, and they're like, well, I teach like 1 unit of history. Like, thanks. That's helpful.
Hashtag teamwork.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. The other thing that students have a hard time doing is making those connections between like how all the things that you're learning in English class are actually really, really useful in social studies, because it's like social studies is literally nonfiction text reading. Right. It's like the whole class, right? It's like, yeah. It's a big part of it. So when the English teachers tell you about like nonfiction text features and how to restate things and answer questions, guess what? We get to practice it. But if I don't say things like, all right, we want to do this like she said, right? They don't automatically make it because it's not always readily apparent. And I think some teachers fall into the trap of like, it's really apparent to them, right? So they just expect the kids to do it. But if they haven't learned how to do it and no one's told them about it, how are they going to do it?
Right. Yeah, some of those unconscious biases or assumptions like sneak in.
Yeah, you're like, well, I know how to do it. Like, yeah, but you're 45.
Congratulations.
And you
good job.
They're 10. So, interesting.
Why do you, right? You have learned this previously. They have not.
Yeah, you've had a bit more practice. This is like the first time they've ever done it. I would hope that you're better than them at this.
Yeah. I'm glad. Yeah. Do you want a gold star? Like, okay, let's.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that we talk about sometimes is like how to be more explicit.
Sure.
And like, this is just like, and again, that's why it's really good to not be so like stuck in your own land.
Yeah. And
not like knowing what other people are doing. Again, I have this benefit in 6th grade because I work like super closely with the math teacher and the English teacher like all the time. Other, upper grade levels, they don't have that luxury. Like they don't always know like, what are they learning about in algebra 2?
Sure.
No idea. Right. They don't know. But I get to go, I know exactly that they are starting to learn about negative integers, which is always great because their brains are always like, what? What do you mean negative numbers?
Well,
but like, I know that. So in science, I can be like, look, this is just like the math number line with negative numbers. Because like, for some reason, through some sheer stroke of luck, the negative number line thing that he teaches and my section of the atmosphere that's about altitude coincide rather nicely.
Huh.
So like
Well,
So I have like this altitude diagram that has like above and below sea level. And I'm like, look, negative numbers.
and
Just like math. And they're like, oh, man. It's like, no, sorry.
Can't escape it.
Or when they write a sentence for my answer, I look at them, I go, what would the English teacher say about that? And they go, okay, fine. And they rewrite it. I'm like, would she accept that from you? No. Didn't fix it. But you have to help them explicitly make those connections, is all I'm trying to say, because they don't always do it automatically. And it is a complicated thing, right? It's not something that just like makes sense. Like, oh, math and history are totally related. Like,
Right.
what? Like, it's not necessarily completely obvious. Like, so, excuse me. So we try to do some of that, but it's very hard. And then we have a very special, like, unique circumstance where we can do it. The rest of the elementary can do it because they're teaching all the same thing anyway. So like they can say, "Oh, look, it's just like we did yesterday in English." Blah blah. But not so much when they get older because they don't know. They don't know like what are they learning in English right now? What's going on in science anyway? Like that part is still not known across things, across curriculums.
Yeah,
the cross curricular thing.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not teachery. My bad. I got.
Jeez, Brandon, can you tone down the?
Sorry.
Kind of like you enjoy it and you're good at it, you know.
No, false. Absolutely false.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, we've wandered hither and yon. So I think,
like we do.
So I think
Indeed.
we will wrap her up there.
Sounds good.
Well, love you guys.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.